The hospital room was cold, sterile, and suffused with an unsettling quiet that wrapped around Maxwell like a shroud. His body, frail and aged, lay in a bed surrounded by the latest medical technology money could buy. Yet, no amount of wealth could save him now. Maxwell was dying, his body ravaged by an unspecified condition, a disease that had crept upon him silently and relentlessly, defying all attempts at diagnosis or treatment. It was in this lonely chamber that Maxwell first saw it. The demon. It stood at the foot of his bed, a towering figure cloaked in shadows, its eyes burning with a malevolent fire. On its bony wrist, it wore a grotesque, decayed wristwatch. The demon's gaze was locked onto Maxwell. Its skeletal finger pointed accusingly at the watch on its own wrist, indicating that Maxwell's time was running short. Maxwell's heart raced.
"Nurse! Nurse!"
He screamed, his voice a hoarse whisper in the cavernous silence. A nurse hurried in, her face composed and professional.
"I saw it again."
Maxwell gasped.
"The demon. It was pointing at its watch. It was right there."
The nurse's expression softened with practiced sympathy.
Mr. Whitaker, given your condition and the medication, it's perfectly natural to experience hallucinations. Try to rest.
But rest eluded Maxwell. Night after night, the demon returned, always silent, always pointing at the watch on its wrist. In desperation, Maxwell tried to bargain with it.
"I'll give you anything."
Offering money, offering everything he had amassed over a lifetime,
"What more do you want
even
from me?"
offering it his custom-made golden Rolex
"Here, take the watch."
that Maxwell
Take it.
wore on his wrist, his
Come
most
on,
cherished possession.
It's solid gold.
He thought maybe the demon had a thing for watches, but the demon remained unmoved, its silence more terrifying than any response could have been. Despair gnawed at Maxwell's sanity. He called for the hospital chaplain, a gentle, soft-spoken man named Father O'Reilly. Together, they prayed for forgiveness. Maxwell, his voice trembling,
Forgive me. I'm
confessed his
sorry.
sins,
Please, I have sinned.
donated his vast fortune to charity, and willed his possessions to friends and loved ones. He hoped that by shedding his earthly attachments, he might find peace. Yet the demon persisted, and all that remained in Maxwell's possession was Maxwell's watch, that golden Rolex, a symbol of his power, his success, and his deepest regret. One particularly dark and stormy night, the hospital felt more like a tomb than a place of healing. The usual hum of activity was replaced by an oppressive stillness. Maxwell lay in bed, eyes wide open, when the demon appeared again. This time, the air was colder, shadows darker. Maxwell felt a sharp, agonizing pain in his chest. His breath came in ragged gasps. He knew he was dying. As consciousness began to slip away, Maxwell forced his eyes to focus on the demon one last time. And then he saw it. The watch on the demon's wrist was identical to his own cherished Rolex. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. The watch, his prized possession, was the very thing that had condemned him. Decades ago, as a young and ambitious man, he had stolen the watch from Edward Langston, a mentor he had admired, almost as a father. Edward had been devastated, his legacy torn from him. The watch was a family heirloom, a key to their generational wealth. Stripped of it, Edward had fallen into despair and ultimately taken his own life. Maxwell had built his empire on that stolen watch, a constant reminder of his betrayal and the darkness that had followed. Now, as he lay dying, he understood that no amount of charity or self-righteous act could undo the past. The demon's silent accusation, its relentless pointing at the watch identical to his own, was a reminder of his ultimate sin. In his final moments, Maxwell felt the cold hand of the demon close around his wrist. The golden Rolex, heavy with the weight of his guilt, was the last thing he felt before darkness claimed him. The demon's eyes burned into his soul, dragging him into the abyss where his wealth, his power, and his reputation meant nothing. Maxwell's death was recorded as unremarkable. Another wealthy man succumbing to the inevitability of time. But the hospital room retained an eerie chill, as if the shadows themselves remembered the horror of his final moments. And somewhere, in the silence, the faint ticking of a watch could be heard. A grim reminder of a life spent in darkness and a soul forever damned.